Hello everyone, welcome to Court of the Rings on twitch.tv/LotraStream. Thanks so much for being here. I'm your community manager, Cordovan, and today we've got the latest news. We'll be talking about crafting and Mariner, and we'll be celebrating a couple of big birthdays inside of the game later on. So thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. And we got a little bit of news. Hope I'm coming through okay. Everything seems okay. Well, we'll have to see what that counter is in the near future. Dan the man on chat. How you doing, everyone? Thanks for being here. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that a little bit of news. We gave the Mariner its second preview this week over on the Bullroar public preview server, and we've got some information that is relevant not just to the Mariner and other things that I'll put up here in just a second. Quick note, what you're seeing here above, this is sort of me parked in an area of the upcoming Corsairs of Umbar expansion. This is landscape stuff. Maybe you saw a little bit of it on Scenario's preview stream this week, but I went in game and just got some kind of moving images, moving video, I guess, in the background. I thought it might be kind of fun to put on the show today. So that is what you're seeing in the background. It's just a little bit of that. All right, so the main bit of news really is this week we put Mariner up for its second preview on Bullroar. That's going down near future, 3 o'clock today. And we talked quite a bit about the Mariner last week, so I'm not going to repeat that information here. If you want a primer on the Mariner, we had the person who made it on the show last week. And you can just watch that video over on our YouTube or Twitch channel. But we did a bunch of work on the Mariner. Here we did some tuning, some changes to based on feedback, and a bunch of polish on it as well. The reason I'm bringing this up, though, is there's some other bits in the notes that are worth bringing up. Some classwork that got in related to buff interactions. I'm not going to read it all because it's just going to kind of turn into a word cloud there or whatever. But we've done a little bit of work related to buff interactions on Burglar. Trickster tricks will now apply the major rent armor, reducing all enemy mitigations by 10% for 20 seconds. And location is everything will increase critical chain skills damage rather than causing the skills to ignore some enemy mits. On the Champion's Advantage will now increase blade skills damage rather than causing those skills to ignore some enemy mits. Damage for Champion Blade skills is up by 8%, and Strike skills up by 20%. On Guardian, new for this preview, is damage for most Guardian skills reduced by 5%. Sorry. It was a little overtuned. Rupture has been corrected to a 10-second duration and a slightly reduced potency, and Hammer Down has its second hit back. On the Hunter side, Bodkin arrows will now increase induction skill damage rather than causing Hunter skills to ignore enemy mits. You've seen a bit of a pattern here. We're moving away from skills ignoring some enemy mits and putting it in other areas. Damage for most Hunter skills is up by about 15%. Loremaster, Murder of Crows debuff is now a 10% miss chance, but 20% incoming damage. Does not stack with Oathbreakers or the breaking of Thangorodrim. Ancient Craft now removes 5% of all enemy mits, rather than armor rating. Enfeeble increases it to 15%. When Enfeeble's traded, Ancient Craft has the correct priority level, so it will overwrite some weaker forms. Related to the Forester event, we'll talk a little bit more about this. Actually, we'll do that a little bit later here. But we've fixed up the Combe Forester event, so that we can hopefully bring that back for real this time in the near future. And a few little odds and ends too. So what we're seeing really here is what will be coming up for update 37.2. 37.2 will be coming out in the near future. And then, of course, update 38 is our expansion. So we'll have more information about the pre-purchase for Corsairs of Umbar in the relatively near future. Ain't yet, though. But we do have update 37.2 coming out in the near future. Sorry, I'll stop doing that. I'm doing it deliberately at this point. Dan the man. Uh, it's a bad habit. I do need to try to cut that phrase from my lexicon. But update 37.2 is next. And that's going to have the classwork and a whole bunch more that we'll be telling you about soon. All right. So that is what's happening for the next 3 hours. Well, 2 hours and 53 minutes. But I also wanted to call out that we do have a post as well that you might be interested in taking a look at. If you have been trying to play that Combe Forester event and saw us bring it out only to end it prematurely twice now, we had an issue where the event was getting desynced. And Orion, our lead systems developer, talks a little bit about what happened to it. Well, we already know what was happening. It was getting desynced. And it was really trying to do something different related to the way the thing opens and closes. So Orion had done some work to kind of have it open and close based on a character, and that ain't working. So what we're going to be doing is putting in a built-in timer that runs independent of player interactions. It'll wait for 6 minutes and then lock the event behind the cooldown. Players will get the alert when the event begins recruiting, and they'll have 6 minutes to arrive at the Combe Forester camp, get the quest, and register. After that 6 minutes transpires, the ability to get the quest expires, and any player who has the quest but is not registered will fail. The failure cases in this quest are there to stop you from exploiting the quest at a later time, and you can read more about all that sort of thing if you want to. But failing the quest will no longer trigger the daily cooldown. Rather, any failure will cause you to wait for 5 minutes before you can take it again. So it's just a 5-minute cooldown. Same is true if you decide to cancel the quest. Canceling will no longer invoke the daily cooldown, and instead just do a 5-minute wait timer before you take it again. Completing the quest will still invoke the daily cooldown. So, it'll now consistently happen every 21 minutes. 6-minute recruiting window, 15-minute cooldown. Quests will be available only while you're recruiting. Failure in canceling the quest will no longer invoke the daily cooldown. All speed enhancements are now properly suppressed, because even playing field. And then crafted Forester axes available in the event are now bound to account instead of character. So that'll be the changes coming to the Combe Forester event. Before we bring it out another time, we want to make sure that this is the last time we have to roll it out and then be in danger of having to pull it back again. So we're going to make sure it works, hopefully, this time. Fingers crossed, and then bring that back. But that should be very soon. I would say weeks. We'll see. I'll have more information on the timing of that once I know more. But, not bad, huh? Couple of questions here I can get to. Let me change my background. Any news on the Steam pay issues for the new store? Fatalite, if you're having an issue with Steam payment, you can get in touch with customer support. Go and submit a ticket through help.standingstonegames.com and send it to account support. Don't submit it as a bug. Send it, it's a help ticket to account support. And they should be able to work through any remaining issues that are left related to Steam. We talked a couple of weeks ago how VPNs in particular can be problematic, and how your billing payment country, your billing payment address, and your location, the IP you're coming from, need to match. So you can read that on Lotro.com if you need more information. But in general, if you're using the Steam client for Lotro, you should only have the option to use whatever Steam uses. And then if you're not using the Steam version of the client, you will never have an option to use Steam payment or something like that. That's how it's supposed to work. I know that there was some bugs and other confusion that have been addressed in recent weeks. If your issue is beyond that scope, if it's not related to VPN or geographic location or whatever, please do get in touch with customer support and they can either work through the issue with you or escalate it as necessary to the wider team. I don't have a direct answer, Martin, as to whether river hobbits will retain their current human emotes and movements or whether they will be getting the hobbit style ones. There was a discussion sometime in this past week amongst the team to decide what do we want to do, what can we do, and what time do we have to do things. I think we will be doing some adjustment there, but before that's actually checked out and we know that we can do it and everything's set, I don't really want to say anything. But I think the plan is to switch most, if not all of them, over to Hobbit emotes when applicable. But I can't guarantee that that's actually going to happen yet. So that's the thinking. We'll see what the action results in. I can't predetermine whether someone's going to run into a payment issue based on a set of criteria you might put into chat. If you're having an issue, though, please do get in touch with support. It gets very complex in the worlds of payment processing in 2023. I would need to know more about what you mean by the PVMP stuff. What PVMP stuff specifically would you like me to comment on? If I can do so, I will. All right. Well, next bit of news I wanted to mention. This is probably one of the other, maybe the second biggest thing we did this week, which is that we've put out a bunch of information, long requested on the live stream and elsewhere here, about crafting. What are we going to be doing with crafting in Corsairs of Umbar? So, Ryan has a pretty decent size right up here that's going to eventually get turned into something that looks like release notes. But for now, we've got this diary here that we can talk a little bit about where we came from and where we're headed. So when we launched Lotro with the vocation system, it was meant to kind of inspire auction house use and trading and social activity between crafters and what have you. But in practice, people just made alts or they didn't do it. So we had attempted to correct that several years ago, I guess, whenever level cap was 105, maybe more than several at this point, by essentially having more difficult, longer advancement paths and, kind of keep you actively engaged with it for a little bit longer. But ultimately, all that did is increase the frustration for some people. Because it wasn't so much the length of time that was the issue, it was maybe just some cruft and complication of the system itself that you wanted us to address. So we've taken a look at crafting overall to see what we can do within the scope of our development and what have you. And here's what we've come up with. So all of this is intended to come out with Update 38 in Corsairs of Umbar. Crafters will be able to execute and learn any recipes available from the Umbar profession. We're going to have a new profession with Umbar. They're trainers without having, the Umbar profession trainers, rather, without having to previously complete intervening tiers. So, you're not going to have to work your way up to be able to do the Umbar crafting. You're going to just be able to do the Umbar crafting, assuming that you're at the level and able to access it and all that sort of thing. So, eventually we want to move backward to remove the earlier tier requirements, and that means we'll logically tie it into the content that it's associated with. So whenever the initial crafting tier released, often, almost always, with an expansion, we're going to tie it to that expansion, so rather than have to work up to it, you'll just be able to do it. This means you'll need the corresponding expansion, yes, to interact with the crafting tiers. But it makes these tiers more accessible as we continue development. And many of these expansions have been given away or in some cases are free. So, and those that aren't, you'll either have it or you won't. We're getting rid of vacation. We're getting rid of vacations. Sorry, folks. No more vacations. It was just a bad idea. People just did all sorts of stuff. They weren't working. No more vocations. The goals we had for vocations are largely obsolete. We think vocations and tier requirements are basically a bummer. Players with multiple characters and years of work corner the market on things because they have done the work, and then everyone else is just like, well, I ain't going to do that. So, if you're currently a crafter with a vocation of any tier, the only change is the removal of vocations. All your professions and tiers remain untouched. If you've never engaged with our crafting system, you can now choose up to 3 professions of your choice when visiting a Master of Apprentices. I do want to make sure I correct earlier. I was going through the copy and just going off in my head. I said there was a new profession with Umbar. That's not true. It's the crafting tier of Umbar is what I meant to say. If you have 3 professions selected and want to replace one with a different profession, you simply remove the old profession and start a new one. Advancement in a profession you remove will be permanently lost. We also want to let people pick a 4th one, likely through the expenditure of Mithril, though we don't know when. Gathering and tracking. So, related to gathering and tracking, it's just going to happen. You'll be able to track more than one resource node at a time. So when you got just the one track skill, you will see just the one track skill. But when you get a second one, your skill will change into general track resources. And you'll begin tracking all of the nodes you can see through all of your trained professions. Once you train a gathering profession, you'll be able to harvest any node of the same type regardless of tier. Gathering ore, wood, and relics is something you just know. So instead of not being able to collect this kind of wood or whatever, you can just collect it, and instead the skill is focused on the refinement of the materials you collect. So anything you can find while traveling, if you can track it, you can collect it. For top-end crafting, for a while now we've been listening to your feedback about crafting tiers not as appealing as you would like, and crafted gear lagging behind rewards coming from quests and other sources. So, we're going to be expanding the places where crafters get needed materials to make top-end gear and items. This thing includes guild-based daily and weekly quests, landscape quest rewards, accomplishments, vendor purchases, and missions. We'll maintain drops and raids, featured instances, delvings, and other end-game content. We're not getting rid of them from anything, we're just adding them to more things. Evergreen resources. We're designing upgradable items that's going to get its own dev diary here in the near future to explain, well, what does that mean and how does that work? But for now, we're going to just upgradable items using a new evergreen resource to create enhanced versions of it called a Luckstone setting. And it saw it as part of the Combe Forester event where it initially debuted. It'll be available in multiple ways. We'll have more information about these upgradable items in the future, but the Luckstone settings are stored in your wallet, are intended to have a limited ability to stack. Getting a Luckstone setting requires effort, multiple ways to get it. Crafting events, guild trade with Umbar and traditional guilds, barter and rare drop rewards, and featured instances and delvings and accomplishments, like allegiances and factions. We do, I guess, want to warn you that advancement along the Umbar tier of crafting is going to maybe be a bit slower than you are used to. To represent learning the new techniques of a foreign nation. Sorry if you don't like the grind. Goal is not to make you punish you, but we do want to have the crafting advancement in Umbar take a little bit of time. Traditional guilds will remain relevant, so you'll use some of your crafting materials in the Umbar Crafting Guild to advance your traditional crafting guild as well. We're also bringing back missions, quests, and instances created just for crafters to help you advance within your craft guilds of Umbar. And that's about it. You can read this in the Lotro forums, in the official discussions and developer diaries, and please do get us your feedback on it. Let me look at chat. Hope I didn't screw things up too bad there. It seems like what I'm showing on screen has some low frames per second. Yeah, that's not actually the case. It's actually 60 frames a second. It's just rendering a little bit slowly because of all the processing I got on my computer and the fact that I'm using XSplit. So it's just a background. The actual video itself, when it's not being played in the setup, is smooth, other than maybe the first 10 seconds of each clip, because that I have a weird thing with my mechanical drive where it's kind of chugging a bit. So, but if you don't like this image, I'll pick a different one. All right. How far out are we from being able to pick a fourth profession? I don't have the answer to that. Orion might know more. I don't think too far out, but I think that we need to get the rest of the crafting work and such out the door first. So in terms of actual timeline, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess at this point, but my guess is it won't be too far off in the future. Does the crafting changes mean that low-level crafting alts will no longer be able to craft umbar-level items? I believe that that's what that means. I mean, you can't currently craft umbar-level items, but you are going to need to be able to get there and do the work. And I don't think you can do that at low level. So maybe. But perhaps Orion will be able to chime in and correct me on that. I recognize that it is a change to tie it to the expansion rather than requiring you to complete everything up to that point. So, but I think this is a more elegant solution long term in terms of how to better distribute this content and crafting associated with that specific kind of content. You know, it was always really the case that that was tied to the content. It's just that it was less explicit, and we required you to do all the stuff leading up to it. Whereas now, as long as you have access to the content, you'll be able to do the crafting. And it solves a whole host of problems. Does mean that, you know, you are going to need the content, so. For existing stuff, though, again, you know, we have to go back. Nothing's changing right away. We have to go back and do this in the future. Um, but it's certainly something we can keep in mind if people have specific pain points they want us to address there. I will have to ask Ryan Egarther. I have no idea whether Track Resources is mutually exclusive with Burglar's Track Treasure. I assume that they are tracking different things and so would be able to run independently of each other, but I don't know the history of that particular skill, so I couldn't speak to it. As long as you can access the content, you should be able to access the things inside of that content. And that's really the base guidance in terms of access is. Someone is saying, if we were to give an X pack to VIP and then that person no longer was VIP, would they still lose crafting access? I think that's probably true, although I think that that's a scenario that doesn't really happen in much of a meaningful way, although I suppose it would in one specific case here. But at that point, you've also gotten that X pack from the free coupons and things, so I'm not sure. Gets kind of complicated there, but really, as long as you have access to the content, you can access the content. Pretty straightforward. Yes, I will be previewing some Umbar expansion music as we get closer to release. I absolutely will. Our actual composer is a little busy right now. I don't think I'm going to be able to get him on the show in the near future, but perhaps a little later on. I had Orion on, was it a week or two ago? And I'm sure that he'll be on again. Martin, yes, I know that there are some purple texture bugs that Scenario and others are working to address. Egarther says Mariner is in the 37.2 previews, Umbar is update 38. So I'm assuming it'll be like Brawler, i.e., you can play it if you pre order the expansion. I would say that sounds like a pretty solid guess. So I will need to. Clearly, you've got, more in the weeds questions about the specifics of crafting access than I can answer for you today. I have no idea. I would need to confer with some people and figure out what that is. So I'm trying to look through our own thread here to see whether Orion has given any guidance on that. Umbar crafting will require the expansion. As to how we'll backfill and address previous tiers, we have not yet made a determination. Just wanted to prep for the idea that tiers will align with the expansions in which they were most impactful or released. That's what I got for the latest on that. That was on Mac Mahal that was here for the Mariner. Orion was on, the week prior to that? Yes, I would expect to see Sev on in the near future. No idea on timing. We're all quite busy right now. Haven't really been able to sit down with him and actually carve out a time to get him on the show. But I would expect to see him on real soon. All right. Gosh, that's a lot of crafting stuff. Let's move on. Clearly, we'll have more information. It is also, there's a big long thread on it in the official discussion forums. I would encourage you with specific questions to read. What? That's not the right. Okay, well. Anyway, what I was going to put up is that we have free gold Hobbit gifts for VIPs through October 10th. That's continuing on before I get in game as well. To actually do the thing I was going to do today, I wanted to let you know the Baggins Birthday event is going on through September 25th. This will run until 3 a.m. Eastern on September 26th. Let me log into the game and do a couple of more notes, and then I will be ready to go. Just two community notes here. First off is I was able to get the soundtrack for Update 35 up on our YouTube channel. So you can now find that. 15 tracks. Return to Karn Doom. Update 36 is coming next, and then Update 37 after that. Update 36 is, I'm currently staging it behind the scenes in YouTube. So that could be out maybe next week, maybe week after. I don't know. We'll see. Something like that. And then Update 37 in the coming weeks after that. And then finally, I did mention this at the start of the show, but we had...
Why doesn't everyone get solar if it does?
Sorry, it's doing ads. Well, anyway, we had Scenario on. doing the first of a series of casual stroll through Middle Earth this week. You can find that on youtube.com/Lord of the Rings. You can also find it next week on Twitch, 2 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday. We're going to be doing the next 3 weeks. So next week and the 2 weeks after that, we're doing Casual Stroll with Scenario on twitch.tv/LocherStream, 2 p.m. Eastern, looking at the landscapes arriving with Corsairs of Umbar. Dan the Man saying we need to do a 2-hour Q&A with Sev. 1 hour goes by too fast. I kind of feel sometimes when I'm behind the camera that 1 hour is a lot. These things can be kind of stressful a little bit to do, to be honest. I don't know that I like the idea of a 2-hour one. It's I mean, I know, boohoo is me and everything, but at the same time, it's like, having to sort of handle a gauntlet of questions like that can be quite the challenge. It's a little bit of work. So. All right, we are going to run in the second half of the show here the Baggins Birthday event. So the one thing about the Baggins Birthday event you need to know is you can only run it once per character. So I had to swap over to an alt that I don't really play all that much, sorry. That'd be Hurgler, my burglar. And so I can run this event. It'll show up in the quest actions available panel if your character can do it. If you don't know if the characters run it, if you log in right now and you see the quest actions Baggins Birthday event, then they haven't run it. Otherwise, you won't see that.
What do you need?
And there's really two pieces to it. So we're here to gather tales. And, you know what? I'm going to cheat in the interest of time and just fast travel my way there. But you're going to go to Hobbiton after you speak to Frodo.
Just a moment. I've no chuck with strangers. What do you need?
Okay. So we are going around Hobbiton here and speaking to a bunch of people. I'm actually going to put, I've been meaning to, at some point here I will get a guide for this event up on locher.com. But since it's such a relatively small event and, pretty easy to do, I really, at the moment, have left it to Fibro Jedi's guide. It's pretty good, so.
Just a moment.
You can just kind of see, got a few up on the hill here, and then most of it just kind of down by Hobbiton. And also, happy birthday to both Frodo and Bilbo. That was this week. It's pretty neat.
Might I have a word with you? Well, the gall of some folk.
So they're telling tales of what they know about Bilbo, of which, quite a few good ones. My brother's cousin's friend's cousin works down at the Green Dragon, And he swears he shipped off a barrel that was heavier than the others the next day. And that it rolled funny like something was in it. Basically saying what happened to Bilbo after the birthday party.
Might I have a word with you? Hello.
Bilbo met a whopping massive bear. No. Bilbo tamed the bear. Radagast heard about it and trained old Bilbo to be a lore master. That's what happened.
Hello there. Might I speak with you a moment? How do you do?
Met up with dwarves. A complex of tunnels under Bag End, and he simply popped down there at an opportune moment. According to the sheriff,
Might I have a word with you? Good day.
saw Wizard Gandalf pop old Mr. Bilbo into a giant sack, just visible through the fog, he said. Mr. Bilbo squirming and wriggling like anything. They just vanished into thin air. Goodness knows what happened to the poor chap, but honestly, with the stories folks tell about his adventures and associates and goings-on, what other end can a hobbit expect than a sticky one? I don't think this is related. Oh, it is, okay.
Stay and have some tea. How do you do?
A whole mess of adventures. The riders of Ronald Rohan. He got himself a war pony, and they taught him to be a proper horse master and all.
Might I have a word with you? Is there something I can do for you?
Grabbed onto a firework and soared into the skies in a trail of sparks. Okay.
Might I speak with you a moment? Hello.
Went back to the lonely mountain to keep it company. If I were him, I'd bring it another dragon. But a nice one.
Please stay a moment. What do you need?
An elf queen has been teaching him to grow the biggest taters a person could ever hope to see. Some folks would just try harder in their own garden plot, but Bilbo couldn't never do anything the easy way.
Good day. Might I have a word with you? A lovely day, isn't it?
At night, you can sometimes see him clothed in black, face hidden behind a dark mask with an even darker cape flapping and flowing behind him, riding along the roads of the Shire, turned vigilante, protecting us all from bandits and goblins. He's like Batman.
Might I have a word with you? Just a moment.
Well, not wrong. Kinda, sorta. Bilbo decided to spend the rest of his days with the elves. Alright, Lobelia and Lotho Sackville Baggins are up by the Parta tree, I believe. Yes. You know, it's really only here I get the Foo Fighters stuff. I mean, I guess I've gotten a little bit on the DDO side, but it's really a Lotro thing, where people think I look like Dave Grohl. I don't look anything like Dave Grohl. Just because two guys have kind of longish hair. I mean, one of them was in Nirvana. The other one just listened to him. So.
What do you want? Why are you bothering me?
Went to a big folk town, got himself the finest fake beard that the remainder of his money could buy. He went to live with the dwarves. Snuck right in there with them, with their caves and their digging. Hiding and working right alongside them.
Hoy there, give me a moment. How rude.
Sampling Holly Hornblower's pies. Holly was experimenting with sneaking in ground-up mushrooms from Farmer Maggot's field. I think eating the pies up and disappeared Bilbo. Good thing odd Gandalf was around to cover it up with a poof of smoke and save us all the scandal. So it was the pies. So my phone is going nuts. Let me make sure that we don't got anything I gotta deal with here. Nope. Okay. Yes, Orion. Really, there was, if you go up in chat, you can see there were some crafting questions. Orion happens to be in our chat right now. Biggest question is probably, does it indeed require X-Pack purchases to be able to engage in the crafting tiers of older content when we go back and do that? Are you going to need the expansion, or can you just send it to a low-level alt like you used to be able to, and do it that way?
Is there something I can do for you? Don't walk off. I need to speak with you.
Alright, so we're going back to Bilbo.
day.
All right. To be clear, I would love to be as cool as Dave Grohl. I think that would be pretty awesome. That guy seems to be pretty all right. I also wouldn't mind making an album as good as Nirvana's. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So the best information right now, Agorasi, about the upcoming crafting update is in the Lochor forums and our official discussion forums. Whoops. Well, that ain't right. Okay. Let me take this the easy way. Alright, so now we speak to Bilbo. In the last homely house in Rivendell and the Hall of Fire.
A lovely day, isn't it? Hello there.
And you get a, other than LIXP throughout, you get a Scribes Book stand here. Story's even better than I thought. There we go. Where am I going? Not the right way. I'm actually going to the map anyway, because in the interest of time, I think I will... Oh, I think... How do I want to do this? There is a second part, and that's what I want to show you. This happened a while back, and there is another section of the quest here that you can access from Lake Town. And I'm trying to remember the best way to get to Lake Town. So...
Greetings to you.
You know what? I'm just gonna go... I think you can get to Lake Town from South Bree, right? So I'll just do it this way. We'll have more information about Corsairs of Umbar in the coming weeks. We're not quite ready to release all the information about our next expansion yet, but we're getting there. So... There we go. Lake Town.
can I be of service?
Ah, is that what you were asking about? The PVMP sieges? That'll be coming, I think, in the future. I'm pretty sure Orion has stated that it's a work in progress with no exact ETA. And so nothing new there in terms of that. But... Alright. So this place is there. And if I recall, the NPC is... Not this way. This way. Yeah, it's a little tricky to get to, unless you've been over here, not that, you know, relatively recently. And I'm going from memory here, so I hope I'm not wrong. I hope I'm not wrong. I suppose I could always cheat and look at the, guide. But yeah, it's just across the water here. Yeah. I am level 121, so hopefully that would be enough to somewhat survive. Oh, there he is. Okay, cool. A forgotten birthday. As you stand on the shore of the long lake, your thoughts turn to the adventures of Bilbo Baggins and the dwarves of Thorin's company. Travel to the entrance of Lake Town and speak to the guard. So we're going back the way we came. You can do this quest with a low character, just got to be a little kind of careful where you're walking and running. But for the most part, you're not, you know, this isn't a combat encounter. It just is in a higher level zone. Not endgame these days, but high-ish. I think this actually is like about a 120 level zone, is it not? Or maybe I'm wrong there. What do I remember about the death of Smaug? I've heard stories. Speak with Old Loskari, who was a young boy when Smaug died. And that's in Lake Town here. go. There we go. Inside of here. I was just a boy back then, no more'n 7 years old, but still I remember it like it were yesterday. A pack of dwarfish came to Old Lake Town. My dad took me to see them. Claiming the mountain back from Smaug, they were. I ask about the friend of the dwarves. He shakes his head. At first I thought he was just a lad, shame on me, or a very young dwarf. His name was Bilbo. He didn't look like much of a hero. I don't remember much more than that. If you want to learn more, you should talk to some of the Raft Elves. I remember they had words with the master, and went off in a huff. Lakeland, the city of the Raft Elves. Yeah, ultimately you just got to get to Lake Town. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. Okay, so the home of the Raft Elves is down this way, west of Esgaroth of Old. That's true. This was pre-missions. I mean, this wasn't super long ago. It's not ancient literature history, but it is older at this point, isn't it? But, you know, remembering that this is a 1 sever per character event, you could run it when you get closer level as well. Unless you have a specific reason that you're staying at maybe a low level and feel like you have to run this. You can only just wait till you get there. I'm kind of just taking a bit of a shorter cut on my way there. So it's not just that Bill Champagne's craft, you know, evolves over time, but this came up recently on the forums, I believe, where someone had asked about the Cape of Belphalis, and, you know, some of this was re-recorded or recorded with higher quality sound samples than was originally released on some of that older stuff. You were seeking information about Thorin Oakenshield. I and a number of elves were dining with the master when Thorin presented himself to the guards of the city. And it's after 1 o'clock here, so I'm going to wrap things up in just a couple of minutes. But I thought I would finish this up real quick and find a good stopping place. So. I thought this was closer than that. Where am I going? Oh, okay, I'm going all the way up to Philigoth. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe, well... Sure. I got a few minutes. Oops. So someone had mentioned Extra Life, and I'm not quite ready to make a big announcement about that at this point, but I will say that I spent some time this week working on getting our Extra Life stuff ready, and we're getting pretty close. So in the coming weeks, I'll have more information about Extra Life this year. I've got a few new items and a few returning items. I've been able to bring back a few things that were part of Extra Life's more distant past this year and add them back to the community loot list. And then I got a that Cloak of the Misty Knight that we already talked about, and the Spotted Corgi, which are both new to the list for this year as well. And our goal's going to be, I think, it's currently set at 25. I think. I've been having some people lobby me that I should just make it a nice even 30. And then set the group incentives at 10, 20, 30. And that sounds like a pretty solid plan. So I think that's the goal for this year. And we already have a bump. You know, we're already... thank you to everyone who's donated already to Team Standing Stone Games. Like usual, if you donated any time during this year, it counts for, like, incentives and things. And I'm going to have more information, including the typical survey link that I use to get you your stuff in the near future. Where did my path go? Here we go. Well, hi there, buddy. There we go. And my person is right up here. this is, I remember this now. Yes, yes. Well, you know, I think I'm just going to call it then. And I will leave this, because it is running a little late, and we have other things I must get to. And I need to find, what's his name? I think it's this way. It's been a little while. I think it's down this way. Yes. No. Alright, well, I will wrap it up here then. I'll have to find Kelithros somewhere around here and then finish up this off camera. Thanks everyone for watching. Court of the Rings on twitch.tv/LotraStream. Archives go up on YouTube afterwards. I gotta get back to work. We'll have more next week about Corsairs of Umbar, our Bull Roar previews, and more. Thanks so much for being a part of the community. Hope you have a great weekend. Talk to you all again soon. Bye-bye.